Hello, everybody. Welcome to another exciting episode of Catch Up with JP. I am your host, Jeff Perro. Today's guest is Mr. Corky Miller. Mr. Miller was a longtime catcher, quite at several teams, most notably the Cincinnati Reds. Now he's working in the Cincinnati Reds as their catching coordinator. Mr. Miller, welcome to the show today.
Hey, thanks, Jeff. It's exciting to be on today.
Good, thank you. So you grew up in Yucaipa, California. You were two-sport athlete, football, baseball. How did you decide baseball over football?
I always loved baseball, and growing up in Yucaipa was a sports town, and just something I always wanted to do. I remember in elementary school, they'd always ask you what you wanted to be, and I always told them a professional baseball player. But after every teacher said, hey, you better think of something else. Not everybody makes it. What else you want to be? And I just thought, I guess I'll tell them I want to be a teacher, so they liked me a little bit more. And it never ended up that way. It just ended up being in baseball, and I ended up being lucky enough to sign with the Reds in '98, and just playing baseball, and I'm still in the game. So it's something I've always thought that I would be in. And if I could tell my teachers now, it's like, well, don't count everything out, even though you don't think the kid can do it.
TV, something at some point, or word of mouth found out what you've been up to since elementary school.
Yeah.
If not, look them up on Facebook.
Yeah. No, and I went to. I actually in high school I had more offers to go play college for football than I did for baseball, but got drafted out of high school in the 20th round by the Angels, and kind of blew that deal by asking for a little bit more money. I didn't know Tyrone Hill was a first round draft pick in '91, so that was about the extent of any kind of pro baseball player out of Yucaipa at that time. And I got drafted. They offered me, I think, $7,500 for a bonus and $7,500 for school. And talking to my coach, and they're like, well, if you don't get this much money, like, you're kind of just pushed to the side if you don't do really well. And so I asked for, I asked for $25,000 cash, and the scout said, all right, well, we'll come back with an offer here in a minute. And they came back in about 30 seconds, said no. So I was like, well, what about 15? And they're like, nah, it doesn't work that way. And end up, I was a draft and follow, so I ended up going to junior college after that, and then waiting for the year. And then after the end of my freshman year of junior college is when I had that conversation, and they kind of just said, no, it's over with. Good luck with your career. And played one more year of junior college at San Bernadino Valley, which is probably 20 minutes from Yucaipa. And I had one offer to go to University of Nevada, Reno, and took that job. So
it worked out for you there. Did you finish your education, college
No,
education?
I did not. I did not. I have no idea what I need left. I mean, it was always in the back of my mind if baseball didn't work out, and you always heard the stories of guys going back to school and, getting another job. But I never thought that way. I always thought, I'll play baseball until,
the
I'm
wheels
dead.
fall off.
Yeah, so I actually didn't even get drafted out of Reno. I signed as a non-drafted free agent. Our hitting coach at Reno, his brother was a scout with the Reds, and after the draft, and I didn't, there was 40 rounds back then. I'm waiting. I hear nothing. And I get a phone call, and he's like, hey, you want a job? And I said, yeah, doing what? And I knew that he was also a guy for EA Sports Baseball. Like, he was I don't know what you call it, a tester, or, was a scout for the Reds, but played the game to make sure everything was good in EA Sports. So I was like, yeah, doing what? And he's like, playing baseball. And I'm like, yeah, dude, I'd love it.
Video games.
Where do I go? And he said, come down to my house. We'll sign a contract because I'm sending my resignation letter, and I want to put them both in the same package. And then, you got to go to Billings, Montana here in a week. So that's what I did. Yeah,
That's
that's
hysterical.
right. Yeah.
So you headed to Billings, Montana. What was that first taste of pro ball like? And I know it's hard being you weren't a second round draft pick. Trying to get playing time as a NDFA guy isn't the easiest thing to do.
No, it's a little different than it is now. So like they flew all the draft picks to Billings, and since I was a couple days later, we hadn't started practice yet, but like there was no host family. Everybody had already gotten together. Everybody had roommates, and um, I was there the night before the first practice, and then I showed up, and they say, "Hey, all the catchers go over to the bullpen," and they had this huge like 6-pack bullpen, and there was like 8 guys over there, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" Like the scout told me, it's like they're looking for an older senior catcher. And I'm looking at 8 different guys, and I'm like, oh, well, it doesn't really look like they need another catcher. But after like the first few pitches, I looked out, I was like, yeah, I'm better than these guys. And then come to find out, most of them were outfielders or first basemen that they decided, hey, see if you can catch, it might be a better opportunity. They had one true catcher who was a high school kid at like 7th round, and he was raw, but that was probably why I was there. And after the second day, there was only 2 of us that were still catching. Everybody else went to their positions, and Russ Nixon was our manager. An all-star catcher in his own right, great guy. I think I ended up catching 55 games out of the 75 that we played that year. So.
So not much of a battle, I guess.
No, it was tough for the young kid. I mean, he was a high school kid that was 4 years younger than me, and I was in the Big West at that time and facing USC and Pepperdine, UCLA, and guys like that.
The maturity that you gain from college,
Yeah,
physically and mentally, and you're used to being out someplace alone. It's a
yeah,
lot different than
yeah,
being 17, 18 years old and thrown to Billings, Montana.
yeah. It was an exciting experience, great place to start your career. I'm kind of bummed that we don't have a rookie ball system like that anymore. But it was a great time. Made some good friends. I was on that team with Adam Dunn, Austin Kearns, guys that made the big leagues that did really
That's
well.
cool.
We still keep in touch every day. We're on a text thread, and we had the next year, '99. Like we all went to Rockford, Illinois, which we had 2 teams in that Midwest League, and out of the position players, I think 7 or 8 of them made the big leagues.
That
Yeah,
that's a stacked minor league system back then, '99.
yeah. I think we
So
won 52 games, I think, in the first half, and then everybody kind of got moved up to Double A from there. So
yeah, the half system in minor league baseball is kind of weird.
yeah,
If you don't want to be too good the first half because then you want to be players the second half.
yeah, because then they all get moved up, kind of like what happened with us. So
Yeah, like I said, still as a non-drafted free agent guy, you worked your way up through the red system pretty quick.
yeah, '99, 2000, I had 2 full seasons before I got to the big leagues.
Okay,
'98
that's
was a
quick.
half season, yeah. Uh, 2000 was Double A, and then I didn't hit really well that year. I think at 230, 240, which nowadays that's hitting really good, but back then wasn't. And then they ended up getting a free agent that could hit, and in 2001, and we were split in time. Like the 2 years before that, I had played 110 games, 109 games, I think, and then we brought in a free agent that could hit, and I was like, what do I got to do? I'm going from playing 110 games to split in time, and I ended up just catching fire at the right time, about to break, and got called to Louisville, and hit real well up there. No idea what I was doing. Thought it was a huge difference, but I was just out there playing. I just thought, I'm going to play forever. And if it's not in, minor league ball, it's going to be, softball league somewhere, and end up getting called up in September in '01.
Hi there, I'm JP, the host of Catch Up with JP. In addition to my duties as the host,
I am also the guy. I'm the guy who entered his credit card number in dozens of places to get this podcast, YouTube channel thing off the ground. I'm also the guy who bought this little handy tripod here and this little microphone that hopefully picks up pretty good sound, and dozens of other little equipment. If you would like to purchase some advertising with the site, podcast, YouTube, I'd appreciate it. Anything to sell, anything you want to talk about, hit me up. My email address is jp@catchupbaseball.com. That's jp@catchupbaseball.com. Chat. I can do banners on the website. I can do little 30-second pieces at the beginning, middle, and end of a podcast. If your audience is baseball fans or baseball players, hit me up. I could use to make $1 or $2 back off of this so that my wife doesn't unalive me over this brilliant idea to start this baseball-related podcast. So let's talk. jp@catchupbaseball, all one word, .com.
It's of 11 years in the big leagues after that?
Yeah,
Part. Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, you could say 11 years, but I got caught up into the big leagues in 11 different years. So
I always like to hear the story. I've been there for a few guys getting called up to the big leagues. Tell me about your call up to Cincinnati. Were you guys at home? Did you have the family there?
Yeah, we were in Louisville. Dave Miley was my manager. My dad and my aunt and uncle had flown in. My dad hadn't seen me play since '98. My aunt and uncle convinced him to fly out. Like, he likes to stay at home. He likes to stay around Yucaipa, and they convinced him to fly out to watch a couple games. And they flew in. We went to lunch. And I got to the field, pretty excited to have my dad watch me play. And I get called in the office, and I think this was September. It might have been like September 1st or 2nd, or maybe right before that, whatever it was. And Dave Miley calls me in the office. Is like, hey, Chattanooga, which was our AA team, is going to the playoffs, and they want you to go back and help them win a championship. And I was like, all right, well, my dad's here. What's going to happen with my dad and my aunt and uncle? Are they going to drive down to Chattanooga? And just trying to go through that in my head, but I'm excited to go back to Chattanooga and try to win a championship. And I'm like, oh, man, all right, cool. And he goes, no, I'm joking. You're going to Cincinnati, and you need to be up there tonight. And I was like, oh. Now then everything else starts spinning around. It's like, oh, well, my dad's supposed to leave tomorrow. Like, they were just coming in for a couple of days. We had an off day the day before, and I said, well, he's not going to get to see me play. So I go out, and call them and said, hey, I'm not going to play tonight. And they're like, oh, why? What's happening? Are you hurt? I said, no, I'm going to Cincinnati. And they ended up changing their flight. And they never got to see me play because they were there for 2 days, and I didn't play for the first 2 days. But they were up there and came to the game and got to see me put on a uniform up there. And that was pretty cool.
I always love hearing those stories because I could never imagine anything like that.
Yeah.
But you made your debut a couple days later, right?
Yeah. I don't remember the date. Maybe September 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th.
September 4th. Yes. Good job. Yeah. I have it written right here. Good job.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So it was right around there. I remember, my dad bought a Cincinnati Reds Aloha shirt or something there and was wearing it, and he was pumped up, man. I didn't know really he was going to be that pumped up for me. It just, he'd just never seen me play in pro ball, and I thought he was going to be like a little upset about not seeing me play, but he was more excited about me getting to the big leagues. And
knowing your son's in the dugout.
Yeah,
pretty cool for a dad. Then you spent how many years? Four more years up and down with the Reds.
No, it was cool to see the old stadium go down, the new stadium come up in 2003, and then it was up and down. I'd never really put anything together. I didn't have a ton of playing time, that I'd had in Louisville, but kind of wore out my welcome, I guess. They wanted to change some stuff up, and ended up getting picked up by Minnesota, and then bouncing around till 2009, getting traded back over to the Reds.
I've spent about 3 days of my life in Cincinnati and about a week and a half of my life in Louisville. I didn't notice when I was there, but especially in Louisville, is there Corky Miller Boulevard? Did they name the international airport after you? Anything like that? I know they retired your number. There's got to be at
No,
least a boulevard or a highway. No,
no, not yet. They always said I could
not
be the
yet.
mayor there,
Not
but
yet.
that's yeah. They always said I could be the mayor there, but that's a job I don't want if I'm not in the dugout. Yeah, it was exciting to have my number retired there. Spent uh, 11 seasons there in Louisville, and love the town, love the people. Kind of watched it go from a downtown you didn't want to be in to a downtown that's an attraction for everybody to go to.
Must be 17, and again like in 2023, and yeah, it's a cool downtown down there with
Yeah.
the Louisville Slugger Museum. Didn't get to go to a ball game. The team was out of town.
Oh man.
It's a cool place, and you still get to go back there and spend some time with with what you're doing now, right?
Yeah, correct.
So, 2014 was your last season playing professional baseball with the Reds. I don't know. Did you hang it up during that season, or was it after that season you decided not to come back?
No, 2013. So, 11 and 12, I never got called up to the big leagues. Um, there was never a need. They had two guys up there that were healthy all year, and that's great. I mean, I knew that was my role, to be the third catcher and be in Louisville and help out some of the guys like Demez Rocco and Tucker Barnhart and guys like that. But in 13, I got called up and spent a good amount of time up in Cincinnati, and I think I was 37 years old at the time. It wasn't as easy to get to the big leagues for me, just because of all the prospects coming up. Like you see Devin and Tucker go up to the big leagues, and I knew Tucker was going on the 40-man, and I kind of just I was going to be done after that season. I kind of asked the Reds about a coaching job, either in the big leagues or in the minor leagues. My first option was for them to keep me on the 40-man and put me in the big leagues and give me a 1-year salary. They didn't want to go for that, which I don't blame them, but I thought it was worth a shot. So I said, put me on the 40-man or give me a 1-year contract, no matter where I go. Bullpen coach in the big leagues, be a roving catching instructor, or be a pitching coach somewhere. Brian Price called me after that and was like, hey, we want you to come back. And I said, okay, well, are you giving me a contract? Like, no, we'll come back as a minor league free agent. And I was like, well, it's not what I want to do. And he just kept on pushing and pushing, and finally I signed a minor league contract with him again. And I just didn't want to go to spring training again. I didn't want to do the stretches. I didn't want to, travel on the road games and not play. It was just something I was pretty much done with. But Brian was like, hey, we'll do the bullpens during the stretches. That way you don't have to stretch. You can stretch on your own. You could do the bullpens. And so I signed the contract and was there of a case of emergency. Well, I think Devin got hurt, and they ended up calling up Tucker Barnhart opening day. So I was like, kind of pissed, because he told me that, you're gonna come up if anything happens. And they called
Something
up
happened, and they called. Yeah.
Yeah. So then I was just, I think we had a couple guys coming in and out. Tucker got sent back down, and he was playing every day, and they needed a roster spot. So they put me on the Phantom DL, which is now considered the development list. And then I just said, well, I'm going to go home. If you need me, call me. I'll go home and I'll work out. And they were fine with it. And then a couple weeks later, I called them. I'm like, hey, you going to need me? They're like, yeah, probably not. Just hang tight. And so a couple weeks later, I was thinking, well, they could release me and then I won't have a paycheck. And so I called them back, said, hey, I'll do anything you want. If you're going to release me, let me know so I could try to find another job. And they're like, no, we'll honor your contract after the draft. You can travel to Dayton and Arizona and do a couple things as like a roving catching guy.
So, and you've stuck with that position. Were you comfortable with that position when 2015 rolled around? Was that something that you wanted to do?
Well, yeah, after the draft, I went to Billings, and that's when Tyler Stevenson, we drafted him in the first round. It was pretty cool. I went to Billings for, I think, 2 weeks and traveled with the team and hung out with them. And, in April, I was in the dugout in AAA, as a player. And then now it's in June, and I'm sitting in Billings, Montana as a coach. But I mean, I was still on a player's contract. If something happened, they could call me at any time to go back to playing. Um, then that year, I kind of finished, went to Dayton a couple times, and then instructional league, which is after the season, which guys that get drafted or guys that need to work on a new position or new pitches. So I went there for 4 weeks and just kind of doing the same thing I was doing in Louisville, kind of talking to the players, just hanging out, like talking about the game. And, it was easy for me just to be myself in a situation where I didn't have to hit 97-mile-an-hour fastballs or block, 85-mile-an-hour sliders in the dirt. They weren't real sure what they wanted to do. If they wanted a Kevin catch instructor, if they wanted a fourth coach. So we kind of did like a hybrid thing where I was a fourth coach in Dayton, but when they would go on the road, I would go out to like Louisville or Chattanooga and if you still look up on online, it says I'm a coach in Dayton, which, I mean, that was 10 years ago and I was only there for 1 year.
Some digging. The Reds are kind of like to keep their coaching assignment secret, it seems like. It's kind of tough to dig down. But you are their catching coordinator, and you have been since 2016, 17? Is that correct?
Yes, I was a hybrid catching instructor in 15. It was official title in 16, but it's basically been the same thing. I'll just go in and travel around to the different teams and spend a week with every team and talk to catchers, talk to pitchers, talk to players, just about the game and just being an asset for them.
Do you love doing that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still in the game. When you talk to players, and you could probably answer this, like the one thing they miss is the camaraderie, the dugout, the clubhouse, the travel, like hanging out with people, and I still get to do that every day.
It's the best things of the game without the busted up fingers and the stretching.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Good. I'm glad you found something that you love. And I know it seems like the Reds also utilize you as a former player with the appearances and things like that as well. So do you get to Cincinnati a couple times a year for things like that as well?
Oh yeah, I've been probably in Cincinnati 10 times, 11 times during a year. With the Reds Caravan, the Reds Fest. I'm big with the Joe Nuxhall Foundation there. Do a lot of stuff with the Hall of Fame. We got fantasy camp out in Goodyear in January. It's always great to go back there and people know you. It was probably the mustache, probably just being around for so long. I had always people like would come up to you and say, yeah, well, my dad used to bring me to watch you play, and here's my son. And I'm like, oh, I don't know if that's a compliment or, like, hey, you're really old. When guys are watching you play when they're like 10, 11, 12, and they're bringing their 5, 6, 7-year-old to watch you play.
In Texas, we had Rangers season tickets, and I became close to a lot of players on that team, and I've bumped into since then. And now I'm old. I'm 46, but through my 20s, 30s, and 40s, I've bumped into those guys again, and just thanked them. Said, I worked in professional baseball for a decade, but you guys just being cool to me when I was 6, 7, 18 years old is what made me want to do that. So thank you, and thank you as well. One other question I have for you. I worked in baseball for a decade, and I was gone by the COVID season 2020, and that just intrigues me of how the baseball world got turned upside down and the way everything ran was just different. And 2020, you were the manager for the Nerds Herd.
Yeah.
How did you get into that? And were you still kind of performing duties with the Reds at the same time?
Like all the teams had their alternate site, and we had one in Prasco, which is up a little bit north of Cincinnati, and they were trying to handpick guys to go and help get those guys ready in case the big league team needed them. And there was no need for me to go. We had another guy that had just become one of our catching coaches, younger than me. They needed guys that maybe could play catch bullpens, and I was fine with it, just because I got to spend time with my family. But then someone approached me with the Joliet Slammers independent team is going to try to put on a 4-team league during the summer, and they were looking for managers and coaches, and end up going there, talking to the guy, and he made me a manager of the team. There was Glenn Allen Hill. I was a manager. Scott Spezio, myself, and then I forget the other manager. But it was guys, like independent league guys with. I think we had 2 Reds guys on our team, catcher and an outfielder that were around there. But it was 3 to 4 games a week, and for a couple months, and it was a cool experience. And I got to do baseball when baseball wasn't really going on. A buddy of mine's they've got an academy up in Mokina, Illinois, and we'd have guys come in there and hit on off days. And like Glenn Allen Hill, he reserved the field every day to have his team go out there and play. Like he'd got all the best times. It was going to be tough for us to get on the field, so we just went and hit. But we got through it. It was just like playing baseball, and there, a couple family members in the stands, and there was a couple scouts. Ian Kroll was on our team, and he ended up getting signed the next year to the Tigers, and that was cool.
Something to do, and some of those guys could have really benefited from that.
Yeah,
showcasing themselves when no one else was able to do that, or staying hot and improving their skills. All right, Mr. Miller. Is there anything else you want to add about life after baseball and what you've been up to, or what you got going on?
I don't know. I couldn't really answer life after baseball because I'm still doing it.
You're still in it, yeah. Life after playing. I apologize.
It's pretty much the same thing, But I as a roving instructor, I travel around. Like right now, I'm in Houston. My son's playing down here at Alvin Community College. I'm down here watching a couple games this week, and then I'm heading up to Great Lakes, Michigan, to watch the Dragons play, and then I'll be heading to Dominican next week as well to look at our young guys that are down there. But yeah, it's the same thing I've been doing when I was playing the last few years, is sitting in the dugout and having a good
baseball.
time. Yeah, talking baseball. Most of my work is done. It's instructing is done during spring training or instructs. Then during the season, it's implementing those tweaks or things that we worked on in spring training. Now that's where my goal is, to get those guys ready to go out and improve on those things all year. So I just go in, check in if they're doing them.
All right, Mr. Miller. I definitely appreciate your time today. Thanks for joining us. And if you ever want to chat some more, you got my contact, and I'd love to talk to you some more, all right?
All right. Thanks, JP.